Kazematten, Brewery Kazematten, Wipers Times.
Life is too short to be drinking shitty beer.
Welcome to another edition of Bands, Bikes and Booze Reviews. The sun is over the yard arm and it's time for a beer. And this beer is the Wipers Times from the Brewery Kazematten, which is based in Belgium, specifically in a place called Ypres. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it was probably the most famous location on the Western Front during World War One, and this is where everything about this beer comes from. The name, Wipers Times. Wipers was a name that was given to the town by British Tommies, who obviously most of them hadn't even left their own village or town before, and they were thrust into a place that spoke Dutch, probably one of the hardest languages to learn for somebody that hadn't even been outside their own village or town, and they were expected to pronounce the word Ypres, and they just couldn't do it, so they called it Wipers. Phonetically, that's what it looks like. It's Y-P-R-E-S, and that's how it became known, Wipers. There was obviously other names that they couldn't pronounce. There's a place called Dicky Bush, which they pronounce it Dicky Bush. Plugstraat, which they pronounce Plug Street, etc. And if you look at the war diaries, I've studied quite a bit of World War One and looked at the old war diaries from the regiments, and even some of the officers, they use these colloquial names as a way of getting round the Flemish spellings. But the Wipers Times was what was known as a trench gazette, and it was basically a publication that was full of gossip, tittle-tattle, regular features, comedy, basically something to lighten the spirits of the British soldiers serving in the trenches. I don't know what they're barking at. Probably someone had the effrontery to walk past the house. But the whole thing about this is in celebration of that. And the Kazematten Brewery, the building dates back to 1680, sort of on the cusp of the 17th century, on the cusp of the 18th century, and the building was used as a military store during World War One, and it was also used as an officers' mess too. And the officers, the British officers that were based there, would have used that building when they were out of the line. And it was also used to store ammunition as well, which probably wasn't a good idea to have the officers' mess there as well, because if it received a direct hit, all the officers would go up. But there you go. I picked this up because I've tried the other beer, another beer from this brewery. It was the Groton Santé, I think it was called, something like that. And I was really impressed by that, and I thought, I'm going to investigate this brewery a little bit more, and I saw this was available, and I thought I have to try this because I am really into my World War One and World War Two history. I've written a book about World War One. If you're interested, it's a history of the 5th Royal Irish Lancers. It's out there on Amazon, and I did that because my uncle was a member of that regiment, fought during World War One. He was gassed. I had 2 other uncles that were killed in World War One. Bear in mind, all these 3 fellas I'm talking about, they all came from Ireland. They didn't have to fight, but they did. They joined up. One was killed. One that my dad was named after, he was in the Army Cyclist Corps and the Connaught Rangers, and he was killed in 1917. And the other one, who's named after my dad's brother, is named after him. He was in the 1st Battalion of the Irish Guards, and he was killed in action in 1916 in the Somme area. So yeah, there's a bit of a connection with World War One and our family. So that's why I felt I should treat this with a little bit of reverence. So let's get this investigated. Okie dokie, Kazematten. It is 6.2% ABV. It's a 330ml bottle. It contains 4 strains or 4 different types of malt, 4 strains of malt, 4 species of malt, and it contains, I'm just looking at this on the ingredients here. Yeah, it contains 4 different types of herbs, and it contains local hops as well. Now I'm doing this, I'm trying to translate this from the Flemish, probably not doing a very good job of it, but that's what I'm getting from the side of it. And it also has something, one of these herbs, it has something called milk thistle. Now, there's different types of herbs that are called milk thistle. One is quite toxic, the other is like an ancient remedy. I'm assuming they've put the ancient remedy in there and not the toxic one. The toxic one is very toxic to animals. It basically deprives them of oxygen. It reacts with enzymes in their stomach, and it stops the transportation of oxygen via the blood, and they get really short of breath. So yeah, they don't tend to eat it. But the 4 herbs, yeah, it says it on the side here, look, 4 grains and 4 herbs. Can you see that? If autofocus will do its job for once in its effing life. There you go. And there it goes. I don't know whether this is fermented in the bottle. It is a blonde ale, so I don't know whether they've put sugar in here or not. I can't see sugar on the... No, I'm lying to you, I can see sugar. Oh, it's got corn in it as well. Oh, so it's got wheat, oats, corn. That's not a good thing. I don't know why they put corn in there. Herbs, hops and yeast. So obviously not conforming to the Reinheitsgebot. But Belgian beer doesn't do that, does it? Some bright spark said the EU should impose a Reinheitsgebot across Europe. And I just thought that probably the most fucking stupid idea ever. That would completely knock out the Belgian and the British beer brewing industry in one fell swoop. So yeah, stick to pushing paper and being over officious dickheads rather than trying to get involved in beer brewing. Let's get this beer open. Is this going to fizz up on me? I do hope not. Now, there is the cap. I now have a purpose for my caps. My missus is doing resin moulding, and she is making beer mats. This is one she's done very quickly, but she's asked me to sort out all my beer caps, German, Belgian and British, and she will make beer cap coasters in clear resin, and they look pretty smart. When she does them, I'll give you a look at them. If anyone's interested in them, just message me. I don't know how much she's charging. Won't be much. God, I can smell it from here. Now I'm a bit perturbed by the inclusion of corn in here. Last Belgian beer that I had that contained corn was Leffe. This actually smells really nice and different. You can really smell them herbs in there. Oh, that really, I'm struggling to describe that. It's banana, clove. It's like a grassy, herbal, which is unusual, figuring there contains 4 different types of herbs in this. Oh, what is that herb? I'm trying to work it out. There's like a hoppy, nettle, bitterness type aroma to it, but there's something else. It's like a fragrant herb. What would that be? I don't think it's the milk thistle. That's just like if it's not the toxic one, I don't know what the fuck that is. That actually looks like a thistle, but the other milk thistle actually looks like a weed. It looks like a salad leaf. You can eat them raw actually, and you can make tea out, coffee. You make coffee out of the roots. It's like a very fragrant herb, and I'm not rosemary. Not coriander. Thyme, could it be? I don't know. I really don't know. There it is in the glass. It looks quite nice. Cloudy, lots of carbonation. Some ethanol on there as well. I'm getting that. And oh, it's almost like a, almost stings the nostrils. I can't wait anymore. I've got to put myself out of my misery and taste it. Bottoms up. That's interesting. It is quite grainy. I'll tell you what, it is very different from your average Belgian blonde. Them herbs, you really can, you know there's something in there that is out of the ordinary. There is coriander in there. I am getting that. I'm assuming this different flavour that I am getting is the milk thistle, or as it's known here, it's called St Mary's thistle, or the blessed thistle. That's what they call it. And I'm rather alarmingly looking at the label, and that does look like the thistle that's poisonous. Hurrah! Hurrah for poisonous beer. That is a really interesting smell though. I've never smelt a beer like this before. That is unique. The dog's going to start barking in a minute. The Kraken's just turned up. Really good mouthfeel. There's carbonation in there, but that is absolutely perfect. It's not obtrusive, but it moves the flavours around. But it's quite grainy. It's pretty unique. Not really tasting the corn in there. The sugar, I think, is minimal. It's not very sweet. It's just malty. You've got this herbal, fragrant herbal flavour. A little bit of banana and clove, not much. And then there's a little streak of ethanol going through it as well. But overall, it's quite nice. It's very drinkable too. And I really like it. There's pepper, white pepper, I'm getting that. But it's really bugging me. Do you know, the only thing I can, it sort of reminds me, like some sort of flower. If you can imagine, slightly acidic, an acidic type smell. It's really hard to describe. And I'm sure somebody who's an expert on herbs would identify that straight away. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't give me a brew sheet on this, so I can't tell you what herbs it is. I've heard that the St Mary's thistle, or the milk thistle, whatever you want to call it, the blessed thistle, has quite an acidic style flavour to it. And it also has quite like a salad leaf type flavour to it as well. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask my missus, because she's really into her herbal stuff, herbal remedies and stuff. I will be back presently. Well, that was great. I asked her and she didn't know either, but she did pick up the pepper. She said, first thing she said, well, very peppery and herbal. And I went, yeah, well, that's what I got too. I'm going to assume that's the milk thistle that has given it that nice flowery herbal style aroma and flavour. This isn't bad. So what's the verdict on the Wipers Times? Well, this is definitely different, I will say that. And I love the way it's got the World War I theme on this. If you look there, I'm assuming that's a caricature of a British officer. I'm going to go on the assumption that they've taken some of the original illustrations from this and put them on from the original Wipers Times and put it on here. I'm slightly alarmed at this plant because that looks like the toxic one. But it's toxic to animals anyway. But hops have a certain amount of toxicity to them too. They're certainly poisonous to animals. But there you go. I like this. It's unique, it's different, but more importantly, it tastes quite nice. It's very drinkable. The mouthfeel is superb. I like the way that, yeah, it contains corn syrup, and it contains corn. And I have to say, this is probably the first beer I've tried that contains corn that I actually like. So that will go down as being the only beer that contains corn I like. Usually, beer that's got corn in it, it's a cheap shortcut that brewers use. Usually in lighter beer, usually in lager, usually in this style of beer. I know Leffe use it, or ABM Bev I should say, use it. But you also see it in a lot of lagers, especially from South America, etc. In fact, they use it a fair amount in Belgium. Jupiler, they use corn in that as well. So there's two. I like Jupiler too. So there's two that use corn. There you go. I like it. It's good. It's unique. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I was going to give it 7.5. I'm going to give it an 8. I'm not going to give it more because of the corn content. I really don't like when brewers do that. Even though this does taste nice, I always see that as a bit of a shortcut. Maybe it's my prejudice against corn in beer. I know some brewers have to use it because the malt isn't abundant in certain parts of the world, but Belgium, you've got no excuse to use corn really. But all things considered, this ain't bad. And yeah, I think 8 is a fair mark for this, and I definitely recommend it. Certainly, if you're into your World War I history, which I am going to keep that bottle because, yeah, it's good. I like it. The Wipers Times. And if you're really interested in World War I and you're interested in the Wipers Times, the fella from, have I got news for you? Ian Hislop. I think he did a documentary about it. Well worth watching. So there you go. And remember, beer is working class champagne.